Hello and welcome to week 3 of county cricket. All things to do with county cricket and beyond. Not much in the news this week, but we'll start with it nevertheless. Jonathan Trott will return to Warwickshire. Of course, he had his trouble with the England squad down under. Came home early due to a stress-related illness, but he will play for Warwickshire. James Anderson, similar sort of story. He'll be available for up to 7 games for Lancashire. Obviously, Lancashire already have a strong bowling unit with Glenn Chappell, Kyle Hogg, Simon Kerrigan, Kyle Jarvis, etc. But to have his experience for a potential of 7 games, it will be 5 games to start with. But depending on whether or not he is picked for England, it may become 7. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And of course, well done to Stephen Parry on his England debut against the West Indies in that second ODI. He took 3 for 32 from his 10 overs, so economical as ever and claimed big wickets. And he took another wicket in the decider as well on Wednesday. Got a bit of treatment in one of the overs, went for about 20 runs, I think, but nevertheless a good debut, and he looks like he's going to be in the England squad, certainly in the one-day England squad for many games to come. The main portion of today, we're going to be looking at the predictions for the one-day competitions. So Royal London One Day Cup, as it's been revamped, and also the revamped 2020 competition, the NatWest T20 Blast. I'll be giving my opinions about which teams I think are going to do well, and then also about which players I think are going to make the biggest impact for the particular counties. So beginning with the Royal London One Day Cup, Nottinghamshire. They won it last year. I think they've got a good case to win it this year. They certainly have strong batsmen in Hales, Lum, Patel, Reed, all that. Those batsmen that seem to do well year on year, they have a very strong depth in their batting, which is obviously quite key. Say that Essex have a good chance because, like Notts, they have the strength in their batting. People like Bapara, who maybe doesn't always do it so often for England, but is certainly a good county player. Scores lots of runs for Essex. But also their experience in Foster, Tenduscar, so those sorts of players that seem to perform for them year on year. So I think Essex have a good chance. From a Lancashire perspective, of course, Peter Moores has said that he thinks Lancashire ought to be converting successful one-day campaigns into silverware. Now, whether or not this materialises or not, of course, is another issue. Personally, if Lancashire were to have average one-day competitions but survive the drop in the championship, finish mid to upper table, in that I think I would probably be happier. I always prefer Lancashire to do better in the 4-day competitions, particularly when you're in Division 1 and it means more to be fighting in a more competitive division. Yeah, Lancashire will probably be up there, but I don't necessarily think they'll win it. But yeah, Essex, not good tips, I think. Also, Hampshire, they really are such a strong one-day outfit, and generally speaking, the likes of Carberry and Vince get them off to good starts. Then they have Dawson, Irvine, Adams. I mean, those kind of batsmen, if they just keep coming at the opposition, one of them's going to come off. Generally, one of them does come off, and that's why they win so many games. Then, of course, you've got the bowling of Briggs to back that up. And I think they'll be a difficult team to beat this year, definitely. Particular players to look out for in 50-over competition. As I was just talking about, I think if Hampshire are going to do well this year, the likes of Carberry and Vince will be integral. I believe that they are the best one-day opening combination, not only in the 50-over but 20-over as well. And I think last year they scored something like 400 runs apiece in the competition. As I said, backed up nicely by a very, very strong middle order as well. But with regards to the 50 overs, their list of batsmen goes on, and Carberry and Vince are 2 key players that I think will be at the centre of that. As I said about Essex, they're generally a very good team as well in one-day competitions. 50 over wise, Bapara, I think, will be suited really well to the 50 over game. He likes to start his innings with nice defensive shots, play himself in, and with the extra 10 overs, I think if he's a number 3, number 4 batsman, which I think he ought to be for his county, rather than 6 or 7, which he seems to be for England. I think he'll be better suited to a 50 over game where he's got time to bat, and often playing for time is better in a 50 over game. You could see a few teams being bowled out this year without batting quite a substantial amount of their overs, because 50 overs obviously hasn't been around for a few years now. So I think Bapara will be key, and also Tendulkar, ball and bat, very aggressive player, has the ability to change an innings very quickly with the bat, as we've seen on many occasions. So Bapara and Tendulkar for Essex, assuming that they do well this year. Bowling wise, I like the look of Stephen Parry for a number of obvious reasons. As we're seeing against West Indies, he's a very good spinner, likes his variations in pace, but also in length and line of the ball, which seem to confuse batsmen. And I think obviously England have picked up on that and realised that he's a good bowler in the middle overs. And I think that his 10 overs for Lancashire will be key and economical as well, which is a big part of one-day cricket. Bowlers are often not so important because of their wicket-taking potential, but because of how economical they can be. And Parry definitely falls into that category, as does Danny Briggs of Hampshire. And if I think they're going to do well in that competition this year, I think that their bowlers will need to back up that strong batting lineup, and Briggs is again an economical bowler, takes wickets as well, so he's the perfect sort of spinner for Hampshire to back up that strong batting lineup. In terms of seam bowlers and wicket-taking bowlers, I really like the look of the trio of Essex seamers, Topley, Mills, Napier. Really sort of strong combination of youth in Topley and Mills, and also the vast experience of Napier with the ball. And I think as a team, they have a good chance to compete this year because they've got that strong batting and bowling. A lot of teams might have one or the other, but the teams that generally win competitions are ones that can perform in all areas. So that's my 50 over predictions for this year. I think Essex, Notts and Hampshire will compete in the 50 over competitions, and I like the look of Carberry, Vince, Parry and the Essex trio of seamers to do well. Moving on to 2020 predictions. Obviously, Northants stunned us all last year by defeating Surrey in that final, and lots of exciting players. Crook, former Lancashire man, Willie, Azarula, Cameron White, Richard Levy. They're all big performers for them last year. I think if I was a Northants fan, whilst I obviously would be on cloud 9 after last year, I think they need to focus maybe more on the Championship, because it's a very, very tough league, and they will be relegation candidates despite having a good team morale, which I view as very important for a successful team. I mean, you only need to look at England lately to see that morale is low, well, before those ODIs against West Indies, and that it did play a big role in the defeats, as well as a lot of players obviously not performing. And I would suggest that Northants maybe might not win the competition this year if they focus on what I perceive to be as more important, which is the 4-day game. And as we all know, in 2020 cricket, anything can happen on the day. So, Derby could win, even though they've got one of the worst records, overall in the 10-year history of the competition, because it is such a lottery. But teams I think are going to do well. You're looking at the obvious candidates. Hampshire, they've reached finals day on so many occasions, the key performers that always perform year on year, I think will give them a good chance. I back them to win it because from the start of the competition, it's very difficult sort of judge who's going to win a competition like the 2020. But Hampshire, because of their strong record, they will probably be quarterfinals, finals day sort of candidates. Again, talking about Lancashire wanting to convert these one-day successes, they've actually got the joint most number of wins in the competition's history, alongside Hampshire, but they've never actually won it in the 10-year history of the competition. But maybe the addition of Josh Butler might push them a little bit further this year. Who's to say? But one player doesn't generally make a team, so I'm still thinking Lancashire, as I say, should probably focus more on the Championship. But will probably be quite an entertaining team in the 2020. They always are, and they always seem to fight in their North group. So this year, with more teams to play against, who knows? Maybe they'll struggle. Maybe they'll do really well. But who's to say? But I like the look of Hampshire. They're always a good bet for that competition. But I think Northants will probably give a good defence of their title because of the players they've got to hand. Moving on to players to look out for. I did warn you last week that Aaron Finch's name would pop up, and needless to say, I'm going to start with him. I really wanted Lancashire to sign him, but obviously we've not. On that matter, Lancashire have actually announced that they're probably going to start the season without a replacement overseas for Katic, saying that we've probably got enough overseas players, so we might sign a player during the season if the need arises, but obviously Anderson coming in means that we might not. But moving back to Aaron Finch, we all know what he's about. I don't really need to say much more other than he is such a destructive batsman on his day. If he does, then Yorkshire have got a genuine chance of doing well this season as well. Napier, ever since that performance against Sussex at Essex, he has captivated us with his batting potential. You know, he uses probably the heaviest bat on the circuit, and the results are clear to see. He's got big guns. He smashes the ball, but he's also a useful player because of his bowling potential. He bowls nice variations, and as an all-round player, he's a massive part of their team. And I think if you were doing a T20 11, he would be definitely in there. He's one of the great players of this 10-year history of the competition in England. His name keeps popping up, but Michael Carberry, he was one of the top run scorers in the competition last year. A big reason why they did so well last year and the seasons before. As I said, I've seen him score 200s last season, and I think he will probably replicate this sort of form. I don't see any reason why he won't anyway. Just talking about Butler before, I think we all know that he's a good finisher, but also he's quite a strong hitter of the ball, and behind the stumps as well, quite an important player. Whether or not he'll make Lancashire's 2020 campaign, whether he'll change that entirely is difficult to say, but I think, definitely he's a player to look out for. Even if Lancashire don't win the competition, they might have this really exciting player, and of course he needs to keep performing. Even though he's already got an England 2020 and one-day spot, he needs to keep that. So his performances need to keep coming in for county and country. And finally, Azarula for Northants, top wicket taker in the competition last year. And I like the look of him. He's a very tricky customer. You know, like Napier, he likes his variations in pace, and that's why he did so well last year for Northants with the ball. But more importantly, obviously, in 2020 cricket, very unlikely to bowl teams out, and generally the bowlers that are the best are those that are the most economical, and that is Azarula. You know, he was very, very tight bowler in the power plays, and then he came back on at the end of the innings to try and restrict the flow of runs, which is something he does very well for Northants, and if Northants do defend their title this year, he'll probably be a big part of that. So that's it for this week. We've done predictions for my 4-day competitions last week, so check out that video if you've not yet. And this week we've covered 1-day competitions and players to look out for. So leave a comment whether or not you agree, and I'll see you next week, where hopefully more news will have emerged. And until then, it's goodbye from me.